When he shut the door in my face, I realized it wasn't the first time I'd been pushed out of someone's life, just the most blatant. My name is Helen Whitmore, and for over 3 decades, I gave everything I had to my son, Daniel. Every penny, every hour of sleep, every quiet sacrifice. I worked as a caregiver in Buffalo, New York, for a generous woman named Evelyn Marston, a woman who, unlike my own family, never treated me like a burden. The work was humble and quiet, but I carried it out with pride. Everything changed the day I came home, voice trembling with the hope of being embraced, and said, "Danny, I won't be working for Mrs. Evelyn anymore. She passed away." He didn't even look at me, just furrowed his brow, dropped his phone on the couch, and muttered, cold as a buffalo winter, "So what now? How are you going to live? Just stay here and be dead weight?" For a moment, it felt like the floor dropped beneath me. The house smelled of microwaved food and used diapers. His wife, Nicole, was pregnant, and everything reeked of exhaustion. The curtains were half drawn, letting in a muted golden light, but the atmosphere felt icy. Nicole appeared in the living room, arms crossed tightly. "Postpartum recovery needs a trained professional, Helen. You were a housekeeper, not a nurse." Daniel chimed in, "Seriously, Mom, you should have told us before you quit. Now our bills are going up and you just waltz in like it's not your problem." I stood there, in the middle of the living room, unsure where to place my hands. There, words came at me like thorns. That's when I realized they didn't see a mother. They saw an ATM with a heartbeat. I tried to explain. I thought maybe, with the baby coming, I could be helpful. Be there for you both. But Nicole's laugh was colder than any snow I'd known as a child. "Helpful? Helen, this isn't just burping and diapers. This is science, psychology, physical therapy, nutrition. You think folding laundry makes you qualified for that?" Her mother, Susan, who sat like she owned the place, added with a tired voice, "If you want to help, you could always hire a nanny. You still have some savings left, don't you?" My palms began to sweat. I had spent every cent I had helping with the down payment on that house. They promised they'd pay it forward someday. But here I was, tossed aside like a disposable spoon. "I'm 58, I whispered, throat burning. "And I think it's time I retire." Nicole laughed as if I'd told a joke. "Retire? With what money, Helen? No pension, no social security? What, you planning to live off your dreams?" And then Daniel said the words that still echo in my soul. "If you want to rest, go find a nursing home. But here, there's no room for dead weight." That was the moment I stopped crying on the inside. They didn't know. No one knew. But before Mrs. Evelyn passed, she left me a gift that would change everything. A trust fund written into her will. A quiet thank you for years of care and loyalty. $8 million. But I hadn't told them yet. I needed to see who they really were before revealing who I had quietly become. And maybe you, listening right now, have been through something similar. Maybe you've been pushed aside by the very people you loved most. If this story touches your heart, subscribe to our channel. Stories like this aren't just fiction, they're reflections. And sometimes, all we need is a reminder. Our dignity is priceless. The silence in that house was cruel. Not the kind of silence that soothes, but the kind that screams between the lines. The kind that chokes you in the pauses between sarcastic remarks. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, just like I always had. I made coffee, set the table, maybe out of habit, maybe out of hope, but no one came down. The warm scent of fresh coffee blended with the sickly sweet smell of apathy drifting down from the upstairs hallway. I sat alone, staring into the steam rising from my cup. That's when it hit me. My presence no longer had a place there. I was like the burnt bottom of a forgotten pot, invisible, except when I became inconvenient. When Daniel finally came down, hours later, fixing his collar in a rush, he grabbed a piece of toast and said, without even looking at me, You should look for another job, Mom. We could really use the help with the bills now. Daniel, I was hoping to rest a bit. I've given everything these past years. You're in good health. You can still work. There are people your age pulling double shifts, you know? His words slid out with the cold precision of someone crunching numbers. I wasn't a person. I was a financial line item, a cost, a burden. Nicole came down soon after, radiant, but not with joy. Radiant in the way someone glows when they know they hold the power. We did some math. If you're not going to work, you can at least cover the cost for the nanny and the nurse. We already found them. All that's left is payment. She laid the documents in front of me, estimates, bills, invoices. My chest tightened. That was it. They weren't even pretending anymore. I wasn't their mother. I was a walking checkbook. A sponsor on legs, I thought, I said, my voice trembling. Maybe I could help. Myself. Be part of the baby's life. Be here. Nicole scoffed. Helen, this isn't about being present. It's about being qualified. You did your part in the past. Now let the professionals handle it. Susan, always lurking like a shadow, muttered under her breath. She could always move into assisted living. Bed, meals, less stress for everyone. My eyes welled up, but I swallowed hard. For the first time, I felt rage. Not the loud kind, but the quiet one. The kind that simmers deep in your gut and burns slowly. I walked to the bedroom, gently closed the door behind me, and leaned my forehead against the cold wood. What am I still doing here? I asked myself. What am I even hoping for? From outside, I heard Nicole say, "The problem with your mom is she thinks love comes with a receipt." Yes, Nicole, I did. Because love without gratitude is just abuse dressed as affection. That afternoon, while they were out for another prenatal appointment, I sat on the couch with the inheritance documents in my lap. Mrs. Evelyn's will. Her recognition, the kind I never received from my own son. She had trusted me. She left me everything. A stable trust, lifetime income, investments, and a letter that ended with the words, "You were more than an employee. You were the only family who never let me down." Those words made me cry for the first time in weeks, not from sadness, but from memory, from relief, from the confirmation that somewhere I had been seen, valued, loved. That day, something inside me stirred. A tired woman, yes, but not broken. And for the first time in a long time, I made plans. That didn't include anyone who treated me like leftovers. If this story is awakening something in you, something that's been asleep for too long, remember this. It's never too late to choose yourself. Subscribe to the channel and walk with us. Because every woman has the right to rediscover herself, with courage, with dignity, with light. A few days later, I sat on the bus, inheritance folder in hand, my heart pounding like a marching drum. I hadn't told anyone. I held that secret, close, not out of revenge, but as a shield. I wanted to see who truly saw me, and who only used me. Daniel didn't see me. Neither did Nicole. To them, I was just an aging woman with unpaid bills. What they didn't know was that the gray-haired woman with time-worn hands now had $8 million in her name. That week, I reached out to a real estate agent. I sat in a modest little cafe in Rochester, surrounded by the smell of fresh-baked bread and the muffled hum of morning conversations, waiting for the agent Evelyn had mentioned in her letter. Rachel Monroe, a sharp, confident young woman with eyes that noticed everything. "Mrs. Whitmore?" she asked, approaching politely. "Helen, please," I replied, offering my hand. "All right then, Helen. Mrs. Evelyn gave me very specific instructions before she passed. She said you were like a sister to her, and that your new beginning should be nothing short of spectacular." Her words tightened something in my chest, a recognition from someone who barely knew me. Rachel took me to view homes in neighborhoods I'd never even dared to dream of. Houses with tall windows, blooming gardens, real marble countertops, and fireplaces crackling even in summer, just for the ambiance. In the third house, I slid open the glass door leading to the veranda and let the fresh breeze touch my face. That's when I felt something unfamiliar: freedom. It wasn't about luxury, it was about space, about peace. "This house is perfect," I whispered. "Would you like to see a few more?" she asked, hopeful. "No, this is enough." We signed the papers 2 days later. No mortgage, no monthly payments. Paid in full, directly from the trust Evelyn had left for me. When I returned to my son's house one last time, I stepped in quietly. They were in the kitchen, laughing. As soon as they saw me, Daniel pulled a face. "Oh, you're back. So, have you decided whether you're getting a job or moving into a retirement home?" I looked at him for a long moment. I studied his face. The traces of the boy I raised were still there, buried beneath the weariness of a man who never learned to say thank you. "I'm just here to pick up my things," I said, calmly but firmly. "What? What do you mean?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. "I bought a new house. I'm moving today." Nicole scoffed, sarcastic. "With what money, Helen? Did you win the lottery or something?" "Something better," I said with a small smile. "I inherited everything. From a woman who saw value where you only saw inconvenience." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel stood up, his chair creaking. "Mom, don't do anything rash. We're going through a tough time." "And yet, somehow you found the energy to treat me like garbage," I interrupted, eyes brimming, but voice unshaken. "You know what's really hard, Daniel. Working for 30 years, sacrificing everything, only to be told I'm a burden." Susan stepped into the room, face tense. "You're throwing everything away, Helen. Family is what matters most." I let out a laugh. Not loud, not mocking, a sad, tired laugh. "This isn't a family, it's an extraction site, and I'm done being the mine." Dear listener, if you've ever felt used, silenced, or cast aside, know this: there is a right time to walk away, and maybe that time is now. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Sometimes the greatest act of love is saving yourself. That night, I slept in my new home for the very first time. The mattress still smelled like new plastic, and the sheets had that faint scent of artificial lavender. But there was something about the silence, a kind of quiet that didn't hurt. No expectations, no eye rolls, no voices telling me I should be doing more. In the center of the still empty living room, I laid down a simple rug, sat on the floor with a cup of tea, and just breathed, and then I cried. But they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of release, as if my soul had finally been given room to breathe. The next morning, the phone rang. I picked it up on the second ring. It was his voice. "Mom," Daniel began, uncertain. "Can we talk?" I closed my eyes for a moment. That voice, the one I had once longed to hear with love, now brushed against me like an unwelcome whisper. "About what, Daniel?" There was a pause. "What you did with Chloe. She lost her job. She's upset. Her family's pressuring us. Did you really have to stir everything up?" I took a deep breath, my hand steady on the phone. "You're really calling me, not to ask how I'm doing, but to worry about the consequences someone else brought on themselves." "Mom, come on!" Now his voice sounded irritated. "You're being dramatic again. I just want to know how to fix this. Enough of the scandal." "Daniel, I need you to understand something. I don't owe anyone anything. For the first time in decades, I'm living for myself. And you know what? It's freeing." "So that's it?" he snapped. "You get rich and disappear? Throw away your family, your grandchild, your responsibilities?" I said nothing. But the silence I held was dense, the kind that only those who've been silenced for years know how to carry. Daniel, I said softly. The last time you used the word family, it came right before suggesting I go scrub floors in a nursing home. He didn't answer. You know what the last straw was? I continued. You kicking my suitcase. That wasn't anger, that was disgust. You treated me like a nuisance, and now you want me to feel guilty for standing up for myself? You're overreacting. No, for the first time. I'm not. Before I hung up, I finished, I'm at peace. You should try it. And I ended the call. That afternoon, I did something symbolic. I walked to the front door of my new house, opened it, looked out at the quiet street, then slowly closed it. I locked it and rested my forehead against the wood. It was the same gesture so many had made before, shutting me out. But this time, I was the one deciding who came in. This time, I was on the inside. If you've ever had to rebuild your life from the pieces others left behind, know this: you deserve more. More respect, more true peace, more self-love. If this story spoke to your soul, like this video and subscribe to the channel, because you are not alone, and you never have to be again. I woke up that morning with a restless feeling, a mix of pain and determination that only years of being overlooked can forge. Still wrapped in the haze of sleep, I was surrounded by a silence that felt heavy, like lead. Down the hallway, lit by a soft, early glow, the scent of freshly brewed coffee, made from beans I'd carefully chosen at the little cafe around the corner, blended with the gentle perfume of newly planted flowers in my garden. It was a quiet reminder that, despite everything, life moves forward, and beauty can still bloom in the midst of adversity. After that last call with Daniel, I needed time to reflect. I spent hours in the empty living room of my new house, just watching how the late afternoon light filtered through the tall windows, how the breeze played with the curtains as if whispering old secrets. In that space, every sound, every scent, every shadow told a story. The story of a woman who was finally learning how to listen to herself. I remember rising slowly, my steps steady but still unsure, and walking into the kitchen. As I prepared a cup of chamomile tea, the kind that always calmed my nerves, my mind wandered through the moments that had led me to question everything. Every harsh word Daniel, Nicole, and even Susan had thrown at me echoed through my thoughts. And yet somehow, those wounds had become fuel for my strength. I sat at the table, facing a window that revealed a world reborn each morning, and gently touched the envelope containing Evelyn's letter. That letter, written in a soft and elegant hand, held not just words of farewell, but a legacy of dignity. You are my daughter in heart, Helen. What I leave you is proof that even when the world turns its back, someone still sees your worth. Those words reminded me that real love, even when wrapped in silence, never truly disappears. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, I found myself lost in a vivid memory, an afternoon from my youth, when I used to dream freely before the weight of life pressed down on my shoulders. Back then, anything seemed possible, and today, holding that letter tight in my hands, I felt a small spark light up inside me. The same spark that once dared to believe I could rewrite my story. In that moment, I made a decision. No longer would the voices of my old family define my future. I called Rachel, the realtor, and arranged to visit a property that had stirred something deep in me. A feeling of quiet peace. It was a house in a serene neighborhood, with wide gardens and a view that stretched endlessly over a shimmering lake. Every part of it whispered of tranquility and new beginnings. The walls, which once might have echoed demands and disappointment, now promised rest and restoration. On the drive there, soft classical music filled the car, and somehow it matched the rhythm of my heart. The landscape slowly shifted as we moved, tree-lined streets, quiet neighborhoods where time seemed to move a little slower. With each passing minute, I felt stronger. Each heartbeat, each turn of the wheels, reminded me that I was worthy of this new chapter. In my conversation with Rachel, who listened to every detail with care, I was finally able to express what I truly wanted. Not just a house, but freedom from the shadows of my past. She understood right away. We discussed options, exchanged knowing glances, and by the end of the meeting, we chose a place that would mark the first real step toward my independence. Signing that purchase agreement didn't just make me a homeowner, it made me the author of my own life. For the first time, I was no longer a footnote in someone else's budget. As the sun finally disappeared beyond the hills, I looked out at the horizon with tearful eyes, but also with a strength I hadn't felt in years. I vowed never again to let anyone define the value of my life or the worth of my sacrifices. I was saying goodbye to a past that would never again have power over me. Dear friend, if you, like me, have ever been reduced to a line item or made to feel invisible in your own story, remember this. Every scar is proof that you survived. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your own story. Because with every sunrise, every door closed or opened comes a chance to be reborn. The days were quiet, followed by nights that were even more silent. And I learned to listen to the sound of my own heart, not the one that beats in your chest, but the one that echoes from your memories. Sometimes it whispered, "You gave too much." Other times it screamed, "Enough." One Sunday morning, while I was organizing books on the newly mounted shelves in my home, the Phi intercom buzzed. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Mrs. Helen?" the doorman said in a low voice. "There's a young man at the gate. Says he's your son, Daniel." I asked him not to let him in. About 20 minutes later, I received a notification on my phone. A delivery had been left at the front desk. I made my way down slowly. It was a huge bouquet of white lilies with a card tucked inside. Hastily written letters, so rehearsed they felt fake. "I hope this new chapter of your life is sweet. With love, your son, Daniel," I smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. I took the bouquet, walked back to my apartment, and one by one tossed the flowers into the kitchen trash. I snapped a photo of the crushed petals and the crumpled card, then sent it to the doorman with one clear message: "Please decline any future deliveries from this sender. Thank you." The humiliation he put me through would not be erased by flowers or by generic cards, but I knew that wouldn't be the end of it. The following week, the appearances began. Mornings, late afternoons, even Saturdays. He'd linger across the street, like someone begging for scraps of forgiveness. One day, he dropped to his knees, eyes bloodshot, face soaked in tears, sobbing as he shouted, "Mom, I messed up. Please forgive me. I'm your son. Please. Talk to me." The whole scene was so dramatic, so painfully out of place, it didn't move me. It made me pity him, not for what he was feeling, but for what he had become. A man who only cried when the source dried up. He wasn't grieving me. He was mourning the supply I no longer gave. And you need to understand this, dear friend. Not all regret is love. Sometimes it's just desperation dressed up as longing. To avoid further scenes, I hired a driver. I started leaving the house discreetly, shielded by the dark tint of the car windows. And every time I saw him out there, performing his pain for whoever might be watching, I would simply close my eyes and take a deep breath. It wasn't coldness. It was self-preservation. Eventually, Daniel vanished. For a few days, I thought he might have given up. But instead of leaving me in peace, he escalated. This time, with quiet cruelty. The phone rang one evening, from an old number I barely remembered. When I picked up, a man's voice, distant and cautious, spoke. "Helen, it's Richard. My ex-husband, the man who disappeared over 20 years ago. Hi? I said, my voice nearly catching. Look, I don't want to get involved, but Daniel came looking for me, begged me to help convince you to come home, said you were unstable, that you needed care. I closed my eyes, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Richard, why are you telling me this? Because I don't know what happened between you two, but he's losing it. Showed up. At my job. Cried, yelled, demanded I take a DNA test. The silence on his end spoke volumes. And, did you? I did. And now he knows. He's not my biological son. But I didn't tell him the rest. I didn't say where he did come from. I left that part for you. The call ended with a dry good luck, the kind that feels more like a goodbye, and in that moment, I knew Daniel would return, but not to ask for forgiveness. He would come back to break me. Dear listener, sometimes the most painful ties are the ones we stitched ourselves, believing love could be taught through sacrifice. But love that hurts every day isn't love. If this story echoes within your chest, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep walking this path of healing, step by step, tear by tear, until we reach freedom. He didn't knock. He didn't ring the buzzer. He just showed up. I saw his reflection in the glass of the balcony door. Daniel, standing across the street, his face half hidden beneath the hood of a sweatshirt, his expression twisted and haunted. He looked smaller, not physically, but in his eyes, in his stance, in the weight he carried. It was as if he had shrunk under the burden of his own choices. But in that moment, my heart didn't race. It didn't ache. For the first time, I felt no fear, only clarity. I calmly drew the curtain closed and walked to the office where a box of documents sat waiting for me. Inside were newspaper clippings, old photos, medical records, and finally, the adoption certificate. Yellowed by time, worn at the edges, but undeniable. I was ready. That very night, I created an account on a live stream platform. I chose the name that best captured the truth. The woman he claims walked away. Then I quietly joined my son's live broadcast, the one that had drawn thousands of followers under the title of a digital martyr. In his version of the story, I was the cruel, greedy mother who abandoned him for money. On screen, Daniel cried, spoke of sleepless nights, trauma, rejection. I made the largest donation of the day, and along with it, left a message in the chat. It's me, the woman you say cut all ties. I'm live too. Want to hear the other side? Come find me. Within minutes, over 10,000 viewers flooded into my stream, and I spoke, not with anger, not with drama, with truth. My name is Helen Whitmore. I adopted Daniel when he was 11 months old. He had been abandoned with a severe heart condition, found by chance in an alley in Rochester. His biological parents disappeared. He barely survived. As the audience grew, I shared images, prescriptions, surgery invoices, old photos of him sleeping in an incubator, the official adoption certificate. I worked 3 jobs to make sure he had what he needed. I gave up my marriage because my ex-husband refused to raise a child who wasn't his. I chose my son. Always. I paused, my eyes burning. And what did I get in return? I was kicked out of the house I paid for, called a parasite, told to go live in a nursing home, like some piece of outdated furniture. The chat exploded. People wept. They wrote, "She's real." He used pain as a performance. It's like hearing my own mother speak the words I never gave, her space to say. And then I played the final audio, the one recorded accidentally, where Daniel suggested I go get hired by some rich old guy as a caregiver just to survive. It was like striking a match in a dry field. The masks fell. The sympathy turned into fury. I looked into the camera and ended with, "I didn't come here for revenge. I came to set myself free." Because at some point we all need to stop begging for love, especially the kind that never truly existed. The next morning, social media erupted. Daniel lost his sponsorships, his channel, and his followers. He was no longer the digital orphan. He was the manipulator of the year, and me. I went back to sipping coffee in the stillness of my home. But this time, that silence was mine. And no one could ever take it from me again. If anyone ever made you believe your love was worthless, remember this: love given with purity is never lost. It blooms somewhere else when the time is right. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because you deserve to be heard, even if they've spent a lifetime trying to silence you. Months passed. Autumn had arrived, blanketing the sidewalks with golden leaves and filling the air with that sweet scent of damp wood. From the windows of my new home, I watched a peaceful landscape unfold, a quiet lake surrounded by trees gently swaying in the breeze. I had sold the 2 houses I'd bought in the aftermath of pain, places I once believed would prove my worth to those who discarded me. With the rising market, I made a profit, but the real gain was something else entirely: the healing silence and guiltless freedom. I moved to a smaller town where life flows slower and neighbors greet each other by name. My mornings now begin with fresh coffee, warm buttered bread, and birdsong. My afternoons are filled with painting beneath the shade of trees or long walks with the sun soft on my face. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to care for anyone, only myself. I get messages from women who watched my story. They write to say they were left behind too, that they supported ungrateful children, that they believed loving meant disappearing. And I always reply with the same words: "You're still alive, and that means there's still time. Time to breathe, to choose yourself, to rise, not in revenge, but in rebirth." I never heard from Daniel again. They say he moved to Canada, that he lost everything: his wife, his followers, his pride. I once caught a glimpse of him in a blurry street video, sitting on a damp sidewalk, eyes lost in the fog. But I didn't feel anger or satisfaction. I felt peace, because the pain he caused me, I turned into a bridge, and I crossed it. Today, no one calls me mom just to ask for money. No one knocks on my door expecting to be saved. Today, I'm simply Helen, whole, calm, free. Sometimes, when I catch my reflection in the living room mirror, I see the marks of time: wrinkles, gray strands, eyes a little more tired. But I also see something that was always there. Something I only recently learned to recognize: silent strength. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. The kind that doesn't beg for love. The kind that rests in its own presence. And finally, belongs to itself. Dear woman listening now, maybe you've spent your whole life waiting to be seen, caring for everyone while forgetting yourself. Maybe you've gone quiet, given every last drop, and still been cast aside. But today, let me remind you, your worth does not depend on anyone else's recognition. Your love doesn't have to be earned to be real, and your story can still begin again. If this story touched your heart, like this video and subscribe to the channel. You are welcome here. You are seen. You are heard. And most of all, you deserve a story where you are the leading woman of your own life.